Long term, there is only one game in town. It's the energy transition.
So Harry, we're here at All Energy. The energy transition is all around us. You've got the ETO, specifically focusing on the UK. What's the big takeaways? What's happening?
Well, I think the clue is in the name of this conference. It's all energy, yeah? And it's about climate change, it's about whole system thinking and the energy transition. And it's worth reminding ourselves where we are today. Yeah, today's energy system is 75% fossil fuels, 25% low carbon, but that low carbon element already has 50 gigawatts of wind and solar. When you look at our energy transition outlook and we extrapolate it out to 2050, you see a massive change. We're trying to rewire 75% of the energy system, and actually our forecast is we get a long way. We actually reduce emissions by almost 83%, mainly by a massive electrification. 130 gigawatts of installed wind capacity, 80 gigawatts of installed solar capacity, a grid that's 2.5 times the size it is today. But also, because with electrification, balancing the energy system becomes a huge challenge, variability becomes a big challenge, and we're going to need a huge exponential increase in storage, something like 310 gigawatt hours of storage. But that's only half the solution. You still need molecules to balance the energy system. 1 in 3 homes will still be heated in 2050 by gas, and between now and 2050, we will need 14 billion barrels of oil equivalent to keep the energy system balanced.
You know, I feel like it was very balanced, that answer. A lot of oil and gas, renewables all coming together. As you say, the name of the conference, All Energy. We need it all. You did seem a little bit more optimistic than I think some reports are, especially when it comes to delivering projects and getting them hooked up and delivering those electrons. Do you feel that DNV are a little bit more optimistic about the energy transition?
I think we are technology optimistic, and as an industry, we tend to take our sentiment from the short-term geopolitics, price of oil, price of electricity. That tends to set our sentiment. Right. But energy is a long-term play. It takes 5 to 10 years to develop an offshore wind farm, an oil and gas offshore field, and then they generate electricity and gas for decades. The medium to long-term outlook remains strong. Why? Because the energy transition will be cheaper, cleaner, and give more resilience, but we'll still need molecules to keep the energy system balanced. So the truth is, the long-term, the medium-term picture's there. We just need the short-term investment environment to allow the projects to move forward. And I think at any given moment, the political climate can introduce delays. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that hesitation today, because it's not just environment planning and permitting, it's also interest rates, it's what's the subsidies and taxation around renewables and oil and gas, and they feed into the short-term sentiment. But long-term, there is only one game in town, it's the energy transition.
Do you know what? We should really touch on politics, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you if we're going to have a new Prime Minister by the end of the day, but I do want to speak to you about the state of energy policy here in the UK. We have Michael Shanks speaking at the conference this morning. What's the strategy behind the UK Energy Transition Outlook report? I know that the UK government cited it. What's going on with that?
I mean, I think it's easy to forget that the UK has the biggest offshore wind sector in the world. Yeah, something like 16, 17 gigawatts of installed capacity, and we see it growing. And I was reminded, I heard something on the radio. Over the 3 decades from the 70s to the 2000s, we had 4 prime ministers. Since 2018, we've had 5 prime ministers. So there has been political instability all the way through. But energy is a long-term play. And I think generally the governments have supported, successive governments have supported renewables. I think there's been a similar degree of support on the oil and gas side. I think the planning and permitting has varied a little bit. But I think today's energy system is very, very simple. You continue to grow the renewables picture, but you keep the molecules to keep the energy system balanced. And generally, once you take away all the rhetoric, it's generally moving forward.
And is that what you're seeing with the North Sea Future Plan? Is that something that is going to happen, the continuation of molecules?
I think as a nation, we have a question to answer. Our energy transition forecast says we need 14 billion barrels of oil equivalent. Right now, our forecast is we'll only produce about 4 from the North Sea. If you look at the NSTA, which is right opposite me, I think they would acknowledge there's something like 8 to 11 billion of potential reserves. So it's for us to decide how much we want to produce domestically, how much we want to import.
Right. And back to the energy transition, back to those electrons in the system. We were chatting about artificial intelligence before we started filming. That's a major enabler of projects, but also maybe a potential drain on the system as we're looking to roll out data centers and they are hungry for electrons. What's the role of AI in the energy transition?
AI has a dual role, or a dual impact on the energy transition. You've highlighted, Ryan, that the data centers will require more electricity. And globally, from country to country, we see that 7 to almost 20% of an energy system in a country, the demand could come from data centers, depending on just what scale of data centers are operating. But at the same time, we need AI solutions, because as supply and demand get tighter, we're going to need those smart AI solutions to help us balance the energy system. So it's absolutely critical. But what DNV sees is that we are at the cusp of a huge AI scaling and adoption. And we're concerned. We don't see the same rigor that the industry has applied to the assurance of physical assets. We don't see that same rigor being applied to artificial intelligence. And therefore, without that rigor, we are worried about the safeguarding, we're worried about the safety and the reliability. And as we're DNV, and we've been in the assurance business for 160 years, we've published a new recommended practice, RP 671, if you want to look it up, and that provides a system-level AI assurance framework to be able to provide that rigor and that evidence that the AI solutions are safe and reliable. And I'm really, really pleased. The UK government, it's the first recommended practice from DNV that's actually on the uk.gov website, because they've looked at it and said it's a great way to assure the AI solutions of the future.